Hello there, and welcome to the I Never Knew podcast, also known as Inc. This show dives into the life experiences of people who have been through it all and have come through the other side stronger, better, and triumphant. Each story is raw, authentic, and, at times, heartbreaking. One thing joins it all together: the fact that the stories can help the listener learn and grow. Hosted by life coach Maureen, she sits down each episode with a new guest who will empower the listener to set out on their self-discovery journey and start to heal. Now you'll be joined by Maureen and her special guest. Please enjoy the show.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of I Never Knew, or Inc. by Life Coach Maureen. I am Maureen Scanlon, your host today, and as always, I'm bringing you fabulous guests. Today, I'm bringing you the most awesome guest, and her story is it's just unbelievable. And if you're looking on YouTube, you can see how she's just full of energy and just so beautiful. I can see her light shining from the inside out. So I can't wait for everyone to meet her. I'm going to tell you a little bit about her. Her name is Deborah LeBlanc. She's Cajun born and bred. Go Nolo, right? And she was the first female executive vice president of transportation in the United States. Oh, go Queen. Subsequently, she left a mid-six-figure income to create the first logistics company for fuel in North America. We're looking at a pioneer, which is amazing. During her tenure as president and owner of that corporation, Deborah wrote and published 16 novels, became an international motivational and transformational speaker, and formed a nonprofit organization whose mission was to fight the growing rate of illiteracy in America's teens. That's a great thing. I love that. Then severe tragedy hit, and once more, Deborah's life direction changed again. After losing a 3-year-old granddaughter, 2 of her 3 daughters, I can't even... her younger brother and dad, all within 5 years of each other, she put the brakes on in her life, questioning what was her true purpose in life. It was only after a failed suicide attempt that the answer came to her. She went back to school and spent grueling 2 years studying hypnotherapy at the first accredited college for hypnotherapy in the United States. She not only graduated with honors as a certified clinical hypnotherapist and received the Director's Award, Clinical Award, and Academic Award, she accumulated 56 specialty certifications in various modalities to make certain she had all the tools necessary to help any client who came her way. Wow. And this is fun, guys. Wait until we get into this because I'm so excited about this. In her spare time, as if she has spare time after hearing all of that, her adventures in paranormal investigations, something she's done for over 27 years. To date, she has hunted in every state in the U.S., serving as the host PI Group's Clairsendium. Welcome, Deborah.
Thank you so much. What a beautiful introduction. I think I'm going to bring you in my pocket, and with every interview I do, I'm going to say Maureen has to speak first.
I'm there. I'm already in. Sign me up. I love it. Anybody can read a piece of paper, but it's really, I feel you. I feel your bio, and wow. I'm speechless. So, we've got so much to tackle in an hour. So let's start off with the stuff that almost made me cry, because the I Never Knew part of the podcast is I had to go through this really painful experience, and I didn't know what I was going to look like on the other side of it. So what did your story look like?
Actually, my story began even before that. I was raised by a single mom who was verbally and physically abusive. So and as the oldest, I served as the protective shield for my brother and baby sister. Probably around 13 years old. I would go to school. I'm in Louisiana. All right. The average temperature here is 100 degrees with 100% humidity year round. We got one day of winter where it goes down to like 50. Okay. So, yeah. So we have the seasons are hot, hotter, and man, you better have two ACs going at the same time. So I would go to school with pants and long sleeve shirts because I was a loner. I didn't have friends because I was a PK kid. And PK didn't mean preacher's kid. It meant project kid. When my parents split up, we wound up moving into the projects, and things were not easier in school than they were at home. Probably about 12, my mother found a donut shop that would hire me to work from 11 at night till 7 in the morning. It had no bathroom in it. It was a little cubicle that had a window right in the middle of the worst part of town. And she would take my paycheck to pay the electric bill. And then, so I worked, I took care of my brother and sister. I cooked, cleaned the house. I raised a family. Yeah. And if it wasn't done exactly the way she wanted to, it was nothing for mom to just take a broom handle and start swinging at me. So, you'd hear things like, I hate you. I wish you were dead. You're worthless. What good are you? Blah, 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 stuff. But around 13 years old, I got off the bus one day. My brother, his bus route had not run yet, and my sister was at a sitter. And I hadn't thought of this at all during the day. I just walked into the house, went into the bathroom, opened the cabinet, and my mother was addicted to prescription medication, anything to numb her emotionally. So she had sedatives, she had painkillers, Valium, Xanax, you name it, she had it. And you could doctor hop back then. They didn't track you by computer, right?
Right.
So she'd have a prescription that was, if it was halfway empty, she was running to another doctor, paranoid that she was going to run out. So she had multiple bottles. I don't know what hit me that day, but I took one bottle, dumped it out of my hand, and took it. All right. Closed the cap, put it back in the counter. I had decided I had enough. I had enough. And I didn't want to create the drama scene you see on TV where these bottles are just strewn all over the place. Everybody knows what happens. You run to the hospital, they pump your stomach, and you're alive. That's not what I wanted, okay? Yeah. So I'm taking every prescription drug she had. I ran out, finally. And at my last count, I was at 279 pills that I had taken. My last thing that was available was a bottle of 100 aspirin. And I just started taking them by the handfuls. That's the last thing I remember. The next thing I hear is my neighbor's voice saying, we're going to have to call her mother. And in my mind, I'm thinking, oh my God, if I'm not dead now, I'm going to be. Okay. Yeah. Calling my mom from work was like a big no-no. Well, next I hear my mother's voice. Now I can't speak. I can't open my eyes. I can't move, no matter how hard I tried. There happened to be a doctor that lived about 2 blocks from us who came over. She contacted him. He came over, and I could feel him poking around my stomach, my neck. And he said, I think she's probably going through her first menstrual cycle. I'm going to give her a shot of Demerol, and that should help her.
No.
Oh, yeah. And I'm thinking to myself, oh, my God, if I get this shot of Demerol, I am going to die.
Yeah.
And for some reason, in that second, it was inconceivable. Taking my own life became, I had screwed up. This was major, okay? Don't give me the shot. Don't give me the shot. I'm trying to speak as hard as I can. I can't see. I can't even make slits in my eyelids. And I feel the needle going in.
Oh, my gosh.
I woke up 3 days later in my bedroom in the same clothes I was in before. And I was covered with, it looked like granules of salt all the way up my pant legs, my shirt. It was a turtleneck. And I sat up really confused and kind of looked back, and I could see the outline of my body with that same granule stuff. It was as if my body just spewed out the poison, and that's how that's how it turned out. And I'm thinking, well, obviously God's not ready for me. All right. So something clicked in my mind then. This isn't about mother-daughter. This is about what you're here on this earth to do. This is a sick woman, and then there are 2 children smaller than you, and you need to protect them and help her to get past whatever part of her journey she has left. Just help her to get past it as easily as you can. I just knew that I knew that. So on goes life. I got married at 16, had my first baby at 18. And then I began to realize I'd married a male version of my mother.
Yeah.
Now, I'm Cajun and Catholic. So there goes the guilt. No matter what you realize, okay? You're stuck, lady. And I have 2 more children, all girls. This man did not know how to be a dad. He didn't know how to be a husband. He sat on the couch. He couldn't hold a job. And I knew that if I didn't get up and do something, my kids were going to wind up on welfare. I'd been down that road. That wasn't going to happen. So I went to work and went back to school. I got a bachelor's in marketing, went into the oil field, and there comes the VP of transportation through all that mess. So life chugs on. There is a divorce in there. Happy days are here again. And, we just keep moving on with life. And so my job now is I'm working to provide for my daughters, to make sure they have a quality education. They have what they need, not necessarily everything they want, but that's my job. Well, I don't know what happened. It's like the sky opened up. My youngest daughter, who was told by 2 OBs she could never get pregnant, wound up pregnant. The father, who thankfully she wasn't married to, was a complete dog. You know what I'm? Yeah, He was a dog, and that baby was born, and she was an angel. Her name was Amelia Grace, and it was so perfect, befitting her. And she was. I keep dropping the word drops out of my brain, and I think it does it on purpose. But autistic. She was autistic, and my daughter could not handle that. My child is not autistic. Okay, don't tell me she's globally behind anything. And probably 2 days after her 3rd birthday, Amelia passed away. My daughter called screaming. I couldn't even understand what she was saying. But I heard Mealy. That's what she called her, Mealy. And all I did was hang up the phone, grabbed my now good husband, and said, something's wrong, seriously wrong. And I burst into the front door of my daughter's home, and I see that baby lying on the rug in her living room, and she's not moving. And my daughter she's just like in shock. I said, did you call 911? Yes. How long ago? 45 minutes ago. What? So I'm giving the baby CPR. Now, this 3-year-old, I'm blowing into her little mouth, doing very small compressions. And when you breathe in their mouth and you see that little chest rising, you have this false hope that bubbles up inside of you and then crashes down when it doesn't keep going on its own. The baby, of course, was pronounced dead at the hospital. 4 months later, her mama, my youngest daughter, was killed in a fiery car crash. I wasn't able to see her. It was closed casket. And a year later, my middle daughter died from alcoholism. She was in AA. She was doing really well. And a lot of this stemmed from always looking for the perfect dad. You know, they always looking for it in the wrong men.
Yes.
And yeah, she was doing great. And then her sponsor committed suicide. And that sent her downhill so fast that we couldn't catch her in time. I did everything. We did, my oldest daughter and I did everything we could in our power to try to save her, hold her. And my oldest daughter went to her home one morning and found her unconscious, brought her to the hospital. She was in ICU for a couple of days. And I was there waiting the visit when I heard code blue and her room number. And they wouldn't let me in the room. I mean, you ever see a mother with all these team of doctors in there, you just want to shove everybody out of the way and grab your baby, you know? And she came back. They were able to bring her back for about 5 minutes. They left the room. The crash cart was left right outside her door, and code blue again. It was her. And the doctor came out and talked to me. He said, we were able to bring her back for about 2 minutes, but he said, we're not getting it. She's just not going to come back. I said, please, one more time, please, one more. If she doesn't come back at 3, then we'll let her go home. But please. And he did. She didn't even last a minute. So we said our goodbyes. And so she's buried next to her sister and her niece. And it was a year after that, my dad, who was my best friend, passed away, but he was 95, lived a, great life. Everybody loved him. And I wouldn't have probably given you a nickel for him as a husband, but as a dad, how not $10 million. And then my younger brother, who I protected and for so many years, passed away from stage 4 lung cancer. Oh, my God. About 5 months later. He was diagnosed and it was just like 1, 2, 3, and that was it. Hospice was called in. We were taking shifts during the night, even with hospice. And no, he didn't even last 4 days.
Oh, my gosh.
So when all of that done, what am I going to work for? Yeah. What's my purpose? Okay, my oldest daughter is old enough. I mean, she's an RN. She's on her own, can take care of herself. And I put the brakes on and I said, what the hell are you on this planet for? Why are you here? And once again, I had been, and this must have been subconsciously or just precognition. I had been collecting 2 milligram tabs of Xanax. I had a bottle about 300 of them. And I had 90, what's the sleeping med that starts with an A?
Ambien?
Ambien. And I just stopped off at the drugstore and I bought a box of 35 Benadryl just because I could. Went to a hotel. I wrote a note to my secretary at the office to tell her what to do. I wrote a note to whoever was going to be in the room if I made a mess. I'm sorry. I apologize. I took a picture of my daughter's picture, a little yellow butterfly that I so associated with Amelia, clutched it in my hand, finished swallowing everything, and just laid down. 16 hours later, I woke the hell up. So mad. So mad. I mean, I literally sat up in bed and was yelling at the top of my lungs, what do you want from me? Yeah. Oh. Okay? So what are they going to put on my tombstone? She opened a company and made money. What is that? Okay? And then when I asked that question, it's just like a domino effect started happening. The university I was talking about earlier that you mentioned, I was literally looking for how much dirt would it take to cover 1 mile of road. We were trying to make a Christmas display on property that I own. And this university pops up out of nowhere. I said, what? And I started checking it out. And I have this little red antenna that goes up when I'm supposed to be paying attention to something. And I did. And I said, this is it. This is where you're supposed to be right now. So I jumped in both feet. And that is what I think all of this was meant for. I think this is what I'm meant for because it came so naturally to me. The clients that I deal with are the most wonderful people. And to see somebody that comes in and you can just see in their eyes hopelessness, and to finally end sessions with them and there's hope and life and spark back in their life, that's a life worth living, you know?
Yeah.
Now, I just found out last week, and that's not in my bio, that my husband, my beloved, has a multiple myeloma. Yeah, that is an incurable blood cancer. Oh. He's already has 5 stents in his heart. So he's not a candidate for stem cell, whatever the heck they do with it, replacement. You have to be in good health and younger. He will not say the C word. And I talk very lightly to him around that. But I just have that in my mind every day, you know? God, you can't, people say you choose the life that you live. Literally, before you're born, it's like you're in the grocery store and you're going, yeah, I'll take that asshole. Oh, I'm sorry. You'll take that jerk. I'll take this jerk, you know? And yes, I will work with those children. And look, I would have had to have been on serious drugs to have picked my life. That's all I know. And I said, God, if that is the case, you got to give me some recompense here. Okay, my husband dying is not an option. It's not an option. So I am going about my day, working with people, spending every moment I can with him, letting him know how treasured, how important he is, and how much he changed my life, so that he realizes that his life mattered. And I realized in that, if I let everyone that I talk to, everyone who becomes a client of mine, and let them know, really, truly, not only let them know, but believe that their life matters, then, oh my gosh, you have a change for life. Everybody wants to matter. They want to believe that there's a reason they're here, and that the world wouldn't be the same without them.
And anyone who is a light worker, who is in the spiritual world, who is in coaching, therapy, counseling, I don't care who it is, if you're in the arena of social work, we relate to that. That's what I think too. For me, I'm changing a life. I'm not just doing a job. And I believe, and I know a lot of people have that same belief as you, is I didn't choose this life. No, we didn't choose the specifics, but I do think we chose to come and ask for these things that we needed to learn. We didn't know how that was going to present itself. And I always say the strongest souls get the greatest pain. And Deborah, as I'm listening to you, I'm thinking, you have the hypnotherapy side of it, which you and I know psychology wise is there's so much in that subconscious that we've repressed. We don't know things we witnessed, some things that we have no idea are in there. I've heard people say, I was molested as a child and I didn't know it. It's in there and we got to let it out. But then I also look at, the bigger picture with you, where you're an overcomer. You're not going anywhere. You are not going anywhere because you have made such an impact. When you said, oh, wow, I started a business and I made money, that's a good perspective of you didn't see yourself the way everybody else saw you. And you and I know when we get clients in front of us and all we do is say, do you know how amazing you are? Do you know how wonderful you are? It's like this light bulb goes on and then the change starts, right?
Yes, that's right.
That's the fun. That's the fun of it. And you and I have so much in common in that the trauma that we experienced early on to come to this point in our lives to do the hypnotherapy and for me, the life coaching was healing for me. It's more of a gift for me than it is for any of my clients. I appreciate the exchange of energy, which is money, but man, it's a gift for me when I'm at my lowest or I'm tired or I've got stuff going on. I get to coach. And that's how I see life now, is everything's a get to, right?
That's right. It is.
So how did you overcome those losses? How did you make sense of not just one loss? I've talked to people who've lost a child. How do you overcome this amount of loss? And how do you come to terms with now your husband, your partner, your soulmate, twin flame? We know we're never going to leave at the same time, transition at the same time. And my heart breaks, but I'm sending you, lots of healing for your husband, because miracles can happen. But how did you overcome the loss, the gravity of so much loss?
I looked at the purpose of their life journey. What purpose? What did they affect? Little Amelia was, I would remember, she lived her first year with us, and I would rock her at 2 a.m. and give her a bottle and just hold her. She'd always clutch my finger like this. And I remember sobbing silently. And I never knew why. I never knew why. But something inside of me must have picked up on the fact that she wasn't going to be around for very long. But the one thing she left that was priceless, aside from so much love from me. She taught my husband, my good husband now, one thing he never experienced before: unconditional love. Unconditional love. He now knows what that feels like.
Kids and dogs, kids and dogs.
Yes.
I'll say it 100 times, kids and dogs. It's just no one can be as pure and unconditionally loving as they are, because they haven't lost anything. They haven't lost and experienced that trauma and what the ugliness of the world is. And it's just their pure light. And your husband got the gift of unconditional love.
He got it, and he felt it from himself to her. You know, he felt what it was like to feel unconditional love for another human. I mean, I know he loves me, but you know the difference between the love of a husband and the love of a child. There's a difference. It's kind of like I tell my daughters, I love all of you with all of my heart. All of you have all of my heart. Don't ask me how, but I didn't split it into threes. You had all of it. Okay.
Yeah.
So the purpose for my youngest and middle daughter, there was just too much pain for my middle daughter to handle in this life. And I live with the concern for both of them that I don't have all the answers. And there's so many speculations, especially in different philosophies, which drive me, some philosophies like existential philosophy reminds me of old men picking lint out of their navels because that's all they had to do. Okay. It's like, who cares? It's if there is another life path, if we do have another life path, they're going to have to learn the lessons they didn't in this one in another one. And I so don't want that for them. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's not that's not my choice. It's not my doing. It's not my decision. All I can do is I talk to them every day. I do. I talk to them every day and never say I told you so. Not once. But yesterday was, 2 days ago was my middle daughter's birthday. Those are tough days for me. But I said, well, you're lucky where you are. You'd be an old broad by now.
I love that your ability to laugh and shine and help others is so inspiring. This is why I do this podcast. And I know that when I had gone through my own sort of enlightenment and awakening, man, it was like finally this puzzle piece was put into 40 something years of my life where I didn't understand everything. I felt weird when I was a kid. And I love what I was hearing where you said, I heard this at 13. You heard yourself talking, your higher self, source, whatever anybody wants to call, their being, their greater God. I know that as I was evolving, I was able to hone into my psychic abilities, which we all have. Then through the coaching, I was getting these messages for my client. And then I started honing in on that. And now I realize the type of, psychic ability I have. And I'm a spirit guide medium. And so now it makes it, as terrible as it sounds, it makes it so much easier to understand the life and death of this physical life. It's easier now, and connecting people, not just through my life coaching and like you through our therapeutic healing in the physical, but I can also now heal from the other side. That is beyond anything I had ever hoped for. And I now have an understanding and a little more acceptance and peace about what's happening in this life. Now, I have never experienced loss like you have, and there's no way I can sit here and say, oh yeah, well, because of this, I would be fine if I went through what you did. No way, no how. There's no way. You can only understand your experience. Even if I had the same experience just like you, it still wasn't exactly like yours because I'm not you.
Sure.
And so what do you think of that? Because now when I think about, with your exploits in paranormal and with your growth with the mind and, the hypnotherapy, you're so well-rounded. I think about, well, I had a lot of life experience and I have a lot of education, and I feel like, yeah, I'm really effective as a coach. And then I look at you and I think, you have all these pieces that make you so effective. So what do you think about, how do you put all those pieces together? How does that make you so inspiring and effective to people?
In some ways, I have to be careful, because when someone comes to me for hypnotherapy, and because as you read in there, they chose a name. They made up a name. It's called clairsyndium. I'm clairvoyant, a sensitive, and a medium. Well, there are oftentimes, and I'll see people, and I see in my mind's eye, it's never visual. My mind's eye, this little Mexican woman standing right over their shoulder there. And I have to keep my mouth shut unless an opportunity pops up where I know that I know. And I start every session with my own form of meditation and prayer, that I just get the right words, the answers that they need to heal. And if it's to give a message that I'm getting from this little short Mexican woman, then I will. If not, I won't. I don't mix them. Some are open to it, some are not. But for me, it really makes, I don't know, how some people can put God, Buddha, Captain Crunch, I don't know, whatever you want to call it, the higher self. It's in a book that's only this thick. It blows my mind, because he is just everything, everywhere, at the same time. How is it possible to condense all he is into that? You are part of him. I'm part of him. If we were born in his image, then we are part of that. I have done a crappy job, excuse that. I have done not so great a job displaying the part of him that he'd be proud of. I'm known to, I use being Cajun as an excuse, because we can have a fiery disposition when you talk about my kids, you talk about my husband, then I'll get out an AK-47. I don't care.
I know, Mama Bear right here. I get it.
Oh yeah.
What's interesting though is when you say I haven't done a good job. Yes, you have. You've done perfectly exactly what you were supposed to do. And I think that's what we do as humans, is we're always looking like we're not good enough. We're always that's part of the mindfulness is, just accepting I am who I am, and I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. And I love who I am today. And it's so hard we're human beings having a physical experience. And the problem is that we're always comparing ourselves to one another, or we're always setting these expectations that cannot be met. And I write about dogs, my books, and how we need to follow the lead of our dogs. Do you think my dog ever sits and questions whether they're good enough? Do they ever question if they failed at chasing the ball? No. So that's what the premise of my whole coaching and my teaching and my speaking is just being so unconditionally loving of ourselves before we can even do that for anybody else. And
that's true.
even with you and I all the time I fail and I'll say, oh gosh, someone needs to coach the coach. Cause I know I know what I need to do, but then I'm like doing, and you probably do this too. I'll have to say to myself, what would I tell my client? What would I tell my client? Because you're doing the wrong thing at the moment. Like, stop it, Maureen. Just stop, right? So
Right.
I hear little tidbits of Deborah doing that in there. Still those little tiny questions of insecurity and lack of confidence from our upbringings. It's still in there. That programming's in there. And I want to get into this with you. I always talk about that programming, what we see, smell, taste, hear, and what's my last sense? Oh my gosh, feel. So it's in there. And, the most formidable years, 0 to 6. I think it goes beyond that, but then it gets inserted in there. And I always tell everyone, okay, when a client comes, I'll say, we've got a motherboard and it's got a lot of memory. Now, you don't know what all it's holding in there, but we got to get that out, right? We need to address that. And then we're going to program some new things. Is that sort of I know it's a loose bird's eye view of hypnotherapy, but tell us in essence what hypnotherapy helps us with.
Well, you're right in the fact that we have, 88% of our brain power is our subconscious. And that's where we have what are called known associations that we determine in our formative years. Now, once we hit about 10, I call it a trampoline, but it's called the critical mind forms. And it's to protect those known associations that because they're all safe zones for you. If you were taught as a child is seen but not heard. That's a positive for you because if I stay quiet, I won't get into trouble, right? So that's a positive. But what happens as an adult where 12% of your brain is responsible for reasoning, decision-making, willpower. What happens up here when that voice that has kept you safe all those years tries to contradict that? Are you going to go into your manager's office and say, I know I can do that job. I'd like that. I'd like an opportunity, to fill that position. There's no way you're going to.
No.
So what hypnotherapy does is we create a safe space and we open that critical mind, create a doorway, and we go into the subconscious. And that's where we start removing and replacing the false positives with the negatives that they should be, and the false negatives to the positives that they should be.
Wow.
That's basically how hypnosis works.
Wow. It's just and it's not just anything. I really love how you just gave that visual. It's taking something that you believed for so long to be one thing and reframing it into something that is okay. And now you're safe to use that thing that you thought was negative. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. And that's very similar. See, I love and respect other, people in this arena. We all do it differently. I feel like, and I'm going to ask you a question at the end of the podcast that I always say, my movement is we're all saying the same thing. We're just saying it differently. I work on false beliefs with my clients and I ask them a series of questions and we get a cycle. And I'm like, oh, abandonment was really prominent in who you are. And now we're going to reframe that. So when this happens, what are you going to believe now? And so I love seeing that we all do it. We all do well because the end game is that we all want the same thing for everybody. We want everyone to be healthy and happy and healed and letting go of all that repressed stuff that will never go away. What do you think about repressed memories? What do you think about how true is it that, do you think it should be used? This is a little controversial. I just want to throw this out. I believe there are repressed memories that we don't know about, and I believe they should be allowed to be used. What if someone comes forth 30 years later, and they know that they were abused. What do you think about letting that in or not letting that into a court or being able to press charges? What do you think?
Well, I know a court does not allow a hypnotherapy session with age regression, using age regression, because it can create false memories. It can come from a television show that you've seen, a conversation you've heard between two people. So and understandably so. However, hypnotherapy can be used in court if you want somebody to recall a full license plate number.
Okay.
But
how do we know the difference between facts and not facts, though?
Well, the thing is that suppose you have a stepfather that you really could not stomach, okay? And you just have a gut feeling that when you were small, you were molested by him. In age regression, that I hate is such a big word, but that you're not liking him can form a picture by in and of itself that's not real. It can.
Okay.
So I'll always test it out. By saying, okay, what do you remember? What did your room look like? What can you see? What do you feel? What do you smell? What do you taste? And then I'll move them forward a year and say, what do you feel? What do you think? Do you remember anything from your last birthday? What happened before then? They'll say, no. You can find out whether it is something that has been created out of their own imagination, or because they despise the guy. Because going to court and saying to somebody, you molested me when I was 3 years old, that is pretty serious stuff.
Yeah, and hard to prove with no physical evidence. And of course, our legal system needs physical proof. So a lot of these unfortunate assaults go unreported and unresolved. I want to ask you now, we're going to move on to my real curiosity factor. Let's talk supernatural. Let's talk paranormal. Oh my gosh. I'm just gonna sit here in awe and stare at you when I hear this stuff. So obviously I'm so fascinated with it. Well, first of all, everybody knows I'm a professed crime junkie, so I'm very interested in the psychology of murder and why things happen. And then now being the medium and being able to understand things on the other side. So this is like a combination. So the paranormal part of this, I need answers. I need to know why are spirits stuck here? Tell us what you've heard, what you've seen. Tell us something interesting and fun, and not just clowns and dolls that are.
No, don't do clowns and dolls. There are different types. There's residual energy. It's like an echo. If you were somebody that was a housewife, and every morning at the same time, you were in the kitchen making coffee for your husband, breakfast for your children, and that was a routine for 30 years. It's not surprising that you may hear the clatter of utensils. You won't see it, but you'll hear it. That's residual energy. It's intelligent energy, an intelligent entity can answer a logical question. What is your name? Why are you here? Some are stuck because, one, they don't know they're dead. They haven't accepted the fact that they're dead. 2, because they want revenge for their death. They want somebody to pay for their death. So they're hanging around till that happens. Another one is because they enjoyed life too much. And they looked at the light, they looked at their life and said, man, crawfish and beer, I'd rather go here. Okay. And so they just hung around. And when they realized that they're in this continuous loop, you can't eat crawfish, you can't have beer, you are stuck. They're very easy to move on. They're very easy to move on.
Okay.
There are some malevolent entities, spirits, and entities. I did a hunt. I don't know if you've ever heard of Ed and Lorraine Warren.
Mm-mm.
They are, if you Google them, they were renowned paranormal investigators. They did the original Amityville investigation. The church used them a lot to go in and document a lot of cases of possession. I did one hunt with them, and that was the one and last. Okay, I know as a paranormal investigator when I'm in over my head. I'm not a demonologist. I don't claim to be a demonologist. I have a very strong faith in God. You can't do this without that. Okay.
Yes.
Knock wood. That's plastic. Knock wood. I have never brought home a spirit with me. Never, ever. Because there is a prayer that I always do getting there, and a prayer that I do before I leave, and I've never had one follow me home. They want to give messages to people that they love, people that are mourning, that just can't get past it. I'm going to give you an example. There was an old man I met at an author's convention. We were sitting at a beautiful buffet table the night before the big signing. This was at a Kentucky book festival. Now, I want you to imagine Walmart, the inside of Walmart, gutted out, times 2.
Oh, wow.
That's how big the place was, where the book signings were going to be held. So I was sitting in a group with 9 other men. I'm used to dealing with men. I have all my life. So I'm very comfortable. And I keep getting pulled to this man on my left. And the name Mary kept coming to me again and again. I said, I'm not going to talk to this guy. They're going to think I'm a loony bin. I just got here. Okay. And Mary, Mary, Mary. I could not make out any other conversation that was happening because I kept hearing the name Mary, Mary. I left the table after dinner and I said, okay, I was up all night because that's all I heard. Mary, Mary, Mary. I got dressed that morning and I said, all right, look, if you have a message for him and this is the real deal, then he has got to find me and I will give him your message. Now, remember the size of the building I told you this was?
Yeah.
It was all the way on one end. I sat down so that all you saw were a sea of heads, and there were tables set up everywhere, and somebody moved just a minuscule, and I see this old man way on the other side. So I slouched down even more in my chair. All right. Guess who's standing at my table 10 minutes later?
Oh my goodness. The old man came and found you. What did he say?
He just said, it's great to see you. I wish you a lot of success today in the book signing. And I went, oh God, please. I said, I have to ask you a question. It may seem a little odd, but do you know of anyone, does anybody close to you that has passed on, whose name was Mary? And his face turned ashen. He said, that was the name of my wife. The moment I said her name, this is how it usually happens for me. The moment I said her name, the message comes out. She wants you to know that the quiet isn't as bad as she thought it would be. It's pretty fabulous here. And he just started sobbing. He said, my wife had such a fear of quiet, of this, that she got a radio on, 2 televisions on. That's the one thing she feared the most about dying, was the silence.
Wow.
Who can make that up?
No. As someone who knows exactly what you're experiencing, I know there's just, and it's hard to convince people that there's no way we can know these things. We're not meeting every stranger and Googling, everything about you. I mean, we're not doing like facial recognition. Give me facts about this person. Even if you did, you couldn't know about the silence part.
No way.
It's such an incredible gift, and I'm so grateful for it. And like you, I'll do that protective message before, and I only allow anything that's higher level and, surround us with white light and make sure we're protected, and nothing that, only those things that are for our good come through. And for me, it's cool when, when you get their relatives and people who have passed on, or I get a lot of spirit guides, I get guardians, I get ancestors quite often. I had an incident with a girlfriend of mine, and I did a reading for her and her mother and both of her daughters. Oh, and her sister. I did all of them. She bought like a gift for all of them for 1 year for Christmas. So I was doing a reading for my girlfriend, and I get a lot of initials. I don't get the exact names all the time. So I'll get like BA or DI or DA, and I'll say, oh, his name is David, or his name is, Danny, or so I got these initials, and I got the name, and I can't remember what his name was at this time. And I said, oh, when you almost get into a car accident, he's the one that stops you. And she's like, I did that today or yesterday. And I said, yeah, he really does protect you. He's your guardian. And he's always the one kind of giving you good advice. They always show me who they are, what they look like physically. And they'll say, this is what I do for them. This is what I do for this person. And she's like, I don't know. And I said, well, it's a great grandfather, so it's higher than your grandfather, and I can see what side of the family, I can see how high up they are, if they're equal, if they're lower, meaning your children versus your contemporaries. And she's like, I have no idea. She went home and talked to her mother, and her mother got out the funeral program for her great grandfather with this name, who died a year before she was born. And
wow.
Yeah, and it's like those moments where I just, it just gives me tingles. You can just feel that validation. I have a friend whose daughter passed, and I've done her readings, and there is this teenage boy dressed in period clothing from about the late 1800s, early 20s. Every single time we do a reading, he shows up, and he's with her little girl, always. And and it just gives her such peace knowing, her little girl has this child is probably about 14 years old, but he's very protective of her. So it's so neat when you talk about that. And people don't always understand the difference between entities, spirits, God, how do we best explain that? I don't always have the best words to explain what I'm seeing to give to people. So what's the difference between entities, spirits, demons, or other things?
A demon is never been in human form.
Okay.
They've never possessed human form. And there are always clues. You'll go through oppression, infestation. It has different... It's trying to weaken your will so that it can possess you. That's the bottom line to it. But it never had human form. You have evil entities in that they were bad people on earth, and they are not that great in death. Okay. I don't run across a lot of them. I do run across some curmudgeons that are just You know, you could tell they didn't laugh a lot in life, but they did have a special message to give a loved one. Now, guides, see, I go blank. I have someone that told me you have many guides, and I'm going. Well, I'm glad you know that because I got this, my gut. That's it. That's all I go by, and what I see and hear appear. Guides, I don't have a clue.
Wow.
So I'm gonna have to send them to you. If you want to know about your guys, wait. I got Maureen. I'll send you to her.
I love it. I see, and that's what I love. We're given these gifts to use in whatever way we're supposed to use them. And like you, I would never recognize demon or entities or anything of this world. It's weird when they're here. I mean, my son's had experiences, and we live close to the Superstition Mountains out here in Mesa, Arizona. Very, very spiritual mountain. And my son, I've seen his spiritual guide, and it's a Native American. And so, the Superstition Mountains that was all Native Americans, and they were protected on that mountain, hiding from all the militia that was coming out when they were coming to do all of the mining for silver. And I think we had silver and copper out here. So my son has seen things like that, but like you said, the spirit guides for you, you don't see that, where I'm like, I don't really, I can feel things like Tombstone. We have Tombstone here in Arizona, Tombstone, Arizona. And that's my place. That's my past life. I know it. As sure as I'm looking at you, I've been spoken to. I swear there's a picture of me in a past life there. It was really profound. So it's kind of neat when you really kind of open our mind, and we open our minds and be open to the other side that we don't have any guarantees to. And I love that you're open on both sides. I love that. You're like, hey, here in this life, we're going to do this, and we're going to work with your mind and your subconscious. And then you also work on the other side. So what I always ask before we go, the last two questions. Well, first of all, what you said about what you never knew, I always ask, what is the thing that you never knew that you know now? And I love what you said. Can I read what you said?
Yes, please.
Oh, I got chills when I read it. So Deborah said that every human on this planet was born unique and special. Each of us was given an internal light that was meant to shine in the world, illuminating even the darkest of nights. And unfortunately, parents, other family members, schoolmates, teachers, neighbors, many we came into contact with during our formative years, whether intentionally or not, managed to either dim that light or hide it so well we no longer believe it exists, or worse, question if it ever did. Without question, doubt, or hesitation, I can honestly say that I know my purpose. It is to be a voice of hope in the world that seems to be slowly unraveling at the seams. I think that is the most beautiful way of putting it. You're right. And it shows your beautiful soul and who you are. I've got chills, validation from your guy, validation from your guides. So that's,
I don't know who guys, Maureen. What are their names? Okay, George or Meredith. I don't know.
We're gonna do a reading. We are so gonna do a reading in the future soon, because I have a feeling you've got a crowd behind you. I really do. And I've seen people who have like arenas with people around them. My oldest daughter is one of them. She has like an arena of people around her. So what I referred to earlier is I ask every guest, you're marching down Main Street in your town with 100,000 people behind you, and you have a banner. What does your banner say about your movement to change in this life?
It's going to have to be a big banner. I want to say, don't forget to shine, or there is hope. There is hope, because people think you're lying. They've heard so many lies. To say there is hope sounds so trivial. But there is hope. You got to just take it one-on-one.
Yes. And it's frustrating sometimes being in this mental health arena where you're trying to help people. Sometimes the positive quotes are coming out to where they're just people don't understand the meaning behind it. But it's like you said, there is hope, but I know people hear some things that we say about being positive. Love yourself, for instance. There's a lot behind those two words.
Oh my gosh. Yes.
Right? It's
yes.
I love that though. Don't forget to shine and there is hope. That is perfect. Now my last question is a little bit lighter. You tell me, what is your shameless self-indulgence?
Shameless self-indulgence. Binge watching Grace and Frankie.
That's so you. That is so you. Okay, are you Grace or are you Frankie?
Oh, I'm a little bit of both. I am. I wasn't a hipster like Frankie. But I wasn't as reserved, as Grace. So I was kind of like in the middle. But I was so look, I'm talking about Grace and Frankie. I hated the last episode. They just made Grace age like overnight. It was horrible. I said, I know you're old, baby, but look, give us some time to get there, all right?
It's so disappointing. It's so disappointing when one of our shows is ending and we're doing Yellowstone right now, my husband and I, and we're only on season 2, and I just heard that 5 is coming out in November. So and I hate it when you watch it and then you're done with yours and they're like, oh yeah, next year, then they're going to come out with the next season. I don't even remember what I had for breakfast. So I'm going to have to go back and rewatch every dang season by the time the next one comes out. Cause our memories just aren't the old gray mare isn't what she used to be. So
that's right. That's right. She's lucky if she can find the barn.
Thank you. Well, Deborah, as we wrap up, I knew I just always feel my guests, and I knew you were going to be such a joy and such an inspiration. And I know that our listeners probably are just in awe, as I am, thinking, wow, look what she did. And she's happy and she's joyful and she still laughs and she smiles. And if she can do that with all that she had been through, I can do it too. And you are an inspiration tenfold for me. I'm always, we're going to stay in contact. Don't think this is like goodbye.
Oh, yeah.
I feel like I'm saying goodbye. I'm just saying see you later. But I just thank you so much for being on today, and tell us where everybody can find you, your books, everything that we need to know for our listeners to reach out to you if they want hypnotherapy or to get your book or to just say, hey, Deb, how you doing?
They can just go to mindpaththerapies.com or just email me at Deborah@mindpaththerapies.com. Now I've got a different site that's my author site. And I wrote paranormal suspense. So yes, like Stephen King-ish, Dean Koontz stuff. And I'm working on, of course, nonfiction now. It kind of revolves around my story. I've had so many high school kids that have asked me, Miss Deborah, when are you going to write a book about your story? I want,
Yeah.
So
a memoir for sure, of light and hope, and that.
Yeah.
When it's not your time, it's not your time, and it's not for you to decide when it's your time. It's for, when your soul has decided, you have learned it all, and when your higher power says, okay, we think you got it, then you go home and you transition. But you, my friend, had so much more to do, and I'm so grateful that you're still here with us and will be. I think you're going to be that super wise old lady that everybody's going to be like, go talk to Deb, go talk to old Debbie. I just adore you. So guys, she gave you, I'm going to also post her links when her episode goes live. I will post all of those links so you can reach out to her if you for some reason don't see those links or you just can't remember how to type. Then you feel free to, well, you'd have to remember to type me too. So come and find me at lifecoachmaureen.com. I have my blogs on there, I have my videos on there, I have my books on there, and I have all kinds of fun things, even speaking and appearances. So lifecoachmaureen.com. Also, my book's available on Amazon. My dog is my relationship coach, and my dog is more enlightened than I am, on the same lines that what Deborah and I were talking about, just loving yourself first, just really learning how to be in alignment with yourself. And then the rest of your life will be what you decide for it to be. You create it to be. No one decides that for you. And life is about choices. Never feel that you don't have a choice. And I think that's the turning point. And everybody, you're amazing. If no one's told you today, Life Coach Maureen and Deborah are telling you, guess what? You're amazing. Believe it.
Yes.
So with that, we're going to end it. And thank you, Deborah. There's not much more that I can say about the fabulousness that is you.
Maureen, if your essence threw out any more light, I would have to wear sunglasses throughout this interview. You are so lit with such a positive, beautiful energy, and I appreciate your having me on your podcast so much. Thank you.
My new sister, we're going to have coffee for real. Where are you? What area are you living in?
South Central Louisiana.
Dang, I love Louisiana. I love it.
Not this time of year, sister.
Trust me, I can leave the dry heat of 110 degrees in Arizona right now. So I do better in humidity. It's very odd. My skin and my hair are much more fabulous in the humidity. So thank you so much, loves. And I'm going to talk to you soon.
Okay. Take care.
Thank you for tuning in to the I Never Knew podcast. If you found today's episode inspiring and educational, please be sure to follow, subscribe, and spread the word. The more people that join the Inc. community, the more it can develop and influence others as we work together for a healthier and brighter future. Until next time.